I am the construction coordinator and an operations analyst with Clean Water Services, and I do most of my work here at the Durham facility. There's my email address if you have any further questions you'd like to follow up on. I also posted a PDF on the Lower Columbia section's website that has a bunch of technical information on the Durham plant, if you guys are interested in looking at that. I imagine as we go along the plant, you're going to ask me a lot of technical details on like what is the size of the aeration basins and the clarifiers and things like that. I have my cheat sheet here, but there's a lot of stuff in here that I don't pay much attention to. I used to know that stuff at one time. I don't know it as much as well as I used to anymore. I thought before we take off, I'd do a real quick run through on the plant here and give you a quick idea of what we're doing. This is really a lot of detail in here is left out. But we've got two main interceptors. There's a lower Tualatin and the upper Tualatin interceptor, and they meet at the influent pump station, which is that building with the teal roof down there. That's the low point of the plant. And it pumps it uphill to the headworks building, and from there most everything runs by gravity. There's one small exception, we'll talk about that. But the headworks building takes all the grit and the screenings and sends them to dumpsters, and we haul those off to landfill. From the headworks, it goes to the primary clarifiers, where sludge is settled out and it's delivered to solids handling, where it goes through thickening process. From the primary clarifiers, the flow is headed to the primary effluent pump station, and that's the other spot where flow is pumped. Most everything is downhill. We used to split the flow by weirs to 4 aeration basins, well, to 3 aeration basins, and when we added the 4th one, we just didn't quite have enough head to split them evenly. So what we did is we just raised the flow up a little bit, and then we could meter the flow to each aeration basin simultaneously. We can split it, 25% to each aeration basin, or if we want, we can say we want this aeration basin to get 5 mgd and then split the rest. From the aeration basin, it goes to the secondary clarifiers, and then from the secondary clarifiers, it goes to the tertiary clarifiers. After the flows had tertiary treatment, we add alum right between the secondaries and the tertiaries. Had to have phosphorus drop out. But after the tertiary clarifiers, it goes through CCBs, disinfection, and then we filter it. And then after it's been filtered, we dechlorinate it. And after it's been dechlorinated, we send it to the river. From the secondary clarifiers, we have a return flow that goes back to the aeration basins, and then the waste activated sludge is headed to thickening, as well as the chemical sludge from the tertiary clarifiers. So all the sludge we remove from the liquids process goes through thickening, and then from thickening we digest the sludge. Then after the sludge has been digested, we dewater it, and then we have it in silos, and we have trucks that take it to Eastern Oregon for land application. We have a couple, during thickening and dewatering, we have 2 outputs on each of those. We have a cake or a sludge, a thickened sludge and a centrate, and then a dewatered sludge and a centrate. And both of the centrates go to a side stream treatment called Ostara, and we make a granular phosphorus component called struvite, and it comes in little capsules, and that we send off to have turned into fertilizer. And that's applied primarily to wholesale nurseries. However, if you go to Farmington Gardens, we have a product called Clean Water Grow that we're actually selling as for retail product right now.
Where do you send it out to? Local or?
The Clean Water Grow is in the Farmington Gardens Nursery or for retail sale. And there's also at the Jackson Bottom Wetlands over in Hillsboro, there's you can pick some up there too. We just started doing that just a couple months ago. We've been selling it to a wholesale developer to package the product, add some magnesium, potassium, and nitrogen, phosphorus, yeah. So anyway, potassium. That's it. So anyway, we sell that to a fertilizer manufacturer. He uses that as a major component of his fertilizer. This is a big plant, so we're probably not going to get to hit everything today. What I'm hoping to do is we're going to go down and look at the influent pump station. We'll look at the headworks building. We'll walk through the primaries and through the aeration basins and the secondary clarifiers. And then we'll go down and look at the SARA facility. And if we have any time left, we can pick up some of the other places in the plant as well.
Perfect.
Any questions before we take off? Yes?
Yes, coming, I see the thickener, kind of comes to the left there, but then right before it goes all the way to the nutrient, there's a line going straight up and back down to the aeration basins. What's that part all about?
We have a process that we take the primary sludge and actually sort of pre-digest it. We pre-digest it before it goes to the digesters. And what that does is the sludge starts breaking down and creates volatile fatty acids. And then we recirculate that sludge and we wash those volatile fatty acids out and send them back up to the aeration basin. Because when the bacteria will take in those volatile fatty acids, and when it does that, it actually releases phosphorus. And then when it gets back into the aerated portion of the plant, it does a luxury uptake of phosphorus. And I'm not exactly sure of the ratios, but like if it releases 4, then when it comes back around and aerated, it actually takes up like 9 or something like that. So that's why we send the thickener centrate back to aeration basin. The dewatering centrate does the same thing, and
it bypasses your clarifiers, or does it go into your clarifiers? I can't see. I can't tell by the
centrate. The centrate bypasses the clarifiers.
Got it.
If we send the centrate back to the aeration basin, the dewatering centrate back to the aeration basin, it's because it helps it tries to maintain the stable load of nitrogen to the aeration basins. The bacteria can do a good job of taking up nitrogen, but if they have a big slug coming at them, they can't grab it at the salt. But if they're used to that high level, then they can do that. Yes, sir.
So does that actually lower the amount of solids that the plant puts out?
No, it probably increases the amount of solids taken out because we actually are taking up more phosphorus when we can. Okay, so like I said, we've got a big plant to cover, so let's. Okay.
Want to ride with us, Joe?
Now we're going to walk.
Beautiful. Some exercise.
So just to make sure nobody has any open-toed shoes and there's no heels. Okay, great. Efficient energy design, and so we've incorporated a lot of energy-saving options in here. All of our VFDs and all of our pumps use our premium efficiency motors, and we try to do as much heating as we can. With cooling, we use our NPW, and heating, we actually recover heat from our digestion process and send the hot water down here to help heat it. So you're not really going to see the actual water coming through here, but I just wanted to let you know that this also incorporates a self-cleaning feature, as the wet wells are very narrow trench-styled wet wells, and as the water comes in, the water level stays even with the flow coming in, and then every so often we actually lower the wet well levels. And when that happens, it exposes the slope, and the water will take a downward bend and increase the velocity and actually scour all the debris that's in the wet wells to the back end of the wet wells where we have a large cleaning pump. So basically it sucks all that stuff up and sends it up to the headworks, and it's taken out of there. So instead of having to take our pump station offline for 2 weeks every 2 years or so, we actually just clean it on a regular basis, and it's no muss, no fuss.
Yes.
So we can go on in here. come over and we feed the switch gear here, and the entire pump station, if we wanted to, could run on one set of switch gear. We tried to balance our loads throughout the plant so that it doesn't put a strain on it. But when we need to, we can actually, right now we have one side offline, so they can be doing some maintenance on so right across the way here is the valve room, and this is probably the biggest valve I think I've ever seen. Okay, you guys are banging, it's all right.
Big bells coming.
We're in a dam.
This is a 42 So, then we have here the connecting valve, this is the big one, and then the two other valves which go up to the headworks.
How big is that?
Well, yes, not my hand. No, they're all motorized. There's a hand wheel there if you ever needed to, but I don't tell you that. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to go out these doors, and there's some stairs that go upstairs. So we're going to go upstairs as far as up as we can go, and then we're going to go outside. When you come to the top of the stairs, there'll be a door, so everyone go outside. Like I said, some of that information you'll find out that download.
What is your code today?
I'll find out and let you know. So from here we're going to walk up to the headworks building.
Hey Joel,
Yeah,
how many turns does it take to close that big valve?
a lot.
One click of a button on
Yeah,
SCADA.
yeah. Yeah, that's the plan. We've got some gas valves we need to replace before we can put them back online, but they're getting set to just put those on today. So our digestion facilities have usually been on the east side of 85th Avenue. We built these back in 2000, ran them for a little while. We put these online because we didn't have enough detention time that if we needed to take one of those digesters offline across the street, we didn't have enough detention time. But these were so big that when we put them online, the sludge got so broken down that it wouldn't dewater very well. So we ended up mothballing these for a while, and now it's time to bring them both online. We're gonna move all of our digestion over to this side of the road. So in either sometime this week or next week, we're gonna pump all the digested sludge from over there into these two tanks here and bring this one online. So this little project is what's taking up all my time right now.
It was built in 2011.
One of our future projects that we're building is going to be fats, oils, and greases receiving station where we can accept all of the fats, oils, and greases from the industry. We're going to break that down and we're going to feed it to our digesters. That ought to supercharge the gas production, and we'll run the gas through a cleaning system, and then we're going to run two dual, I think they're 500 kilowatt generators.
Oh, nice. Yeah. How you guys? Good, Bert. How are you? Good. Copy working, man. Oh, easy. Spread that down. Yeah, there you go. Oh, yeah.
I'm a kid. I used to hill at Carblue West. Like a 50 degree, 50
2 nights a week.
downgrade. Even higher, even more. I used to that. Along with, I think it's Brad.
We're 24/7.
Right away.
Hey!
Whoops. Forklift.
Build some solar arrays, and we told them that we would purchase all the power that they could produce. So, no, it's like one thing to, it's one thing to clean energy.
No. Listen to the music. It's another thing to research.
You know, that's the kind of crazy.
Look at the album cover.
We did on
You guys try to buy the whole thing?
we thought about
I have a mashup of G6 and kids by MGT, so I know really
they take care of the whole thing and we just buy it.
Asians with the slice. Not too heavy, not light, just right.
for the G6.
Yeah,
Right.
When I do, it's
Doing great.
fairly thorough. So how long you been here, Joe?
I don't get every.
Get your exercise in.
Well, actually, to be honest with you, most of my job, yeah, it was kind of nice.
Oh, that. I'm guessing that's all sport. It's raining sideways like it was last week. Concrete top.
Oh, yeah?
Really sideways. Everybody has some shooters. Everybody forgot their coat.
Oh, yeah.
They think by spanning it like a bridge.
I've not seen any deer. We have had some talking some cows. What percentage of my power? Probably 23%. You need to generate a lot. Yeah. Our
So, had I not come back here, I would have been on the bridge going home. I mean, you know, who knows, you know, it's just all, yeah.
So 10% change is still substantial.
Yeah.
I would have definitely been.
Well,
The
cogen plant's gonna go out to bid here next month.
you know what
You walking in here?
Yes.
So I've been playing with it for a few months.
Oh,
It's
okay.
interesting.
Yes. And we're good. So this is the place where RVs can come. The RVs can pull out on this side and they go around the view. And right at the street level, there's a place where RVs can offload their waste at. We also have a place in here where liquid waste haulers, septic trucks, can come in and offload their loads up here. We'll take a look at that too.
For a fee?
For a fee, yes.
How much?
Yes.
I'm not sure.
How much is the panel set?
Yeah.
What? You said that they've said that.
Well, you have
So part of the project will be extending this road here to the one down below that we came out of. Yeah. So liquid waste haulers pull in here and then back up the ramp for offloading. They come when they need something.
Last year we were here, pumping it in there. Charging for that box.
No, we're cleaning the gas to natural gas standard, so we're doing that. We're not doing anything with biodiesel.
Yeah, I push pins.
So all the liquid waste haulers have a fob that lets them through that gate, and then they pull up to here, they hook up to over there, and on the other side of there there's a control panel that they punch in their code that tells them who they are, and then they just punch in what kind of truck they have, and they know how many gallons that holds, so then they can offload there. There's also a flow meter in there that records the amount of flow coming in. So we'll go on in here to the headworks building.
set it up.
So after the flow goes through the bar
Give him-
screens and all the screenings have been removed, there's these channels that send up over to that corner there. But these are piston grits that allows the grit to fall out of the flow stream. And then from there we have grit pumps down below that pump them back up to a couple cyclonic degritters. And then from there that is conveyed to separate dumpsters down below. So we separate the screenings and grit into different dumpsters. Prior to this, has been remodeled about 2 years ago, and at that time we actually had the screenings and the grit commingled, and the solids handling equipment really doesn't like using grit and screenings together, so we were able to separate them and do a better job.
I was gonna say, they don't, so they go to the landfill separately.
They go to the landfill separately, yes.
At Tri-Cities, they have different hoppers. Where I'm interning, they have different hoppers. It all dumps into the same dump truck and goes to the landfill.
Well,
So was the reason because of?
Well, we can go down and look at the grit facility down below, but it uses a lot of screw conveyors, and the screenings get wrapped around those screw conveyors, and we got plugs on them and all sorts of problems with that.
So it's the same thing, but theoretically you could just put at the end, you could put it all into one dumpster. It's not something required by the landfill.
It's not something that's required by the landfill.
Okay, gotcha. That's what I was trying to confuse.
So we'll go into the electrical room just really quick. I've got a SCADA terminal in there. I can tell you what the flow is.
Oh, good. You get the answer.
Yeah. I'm looking like kind of.
Oh, okay. I've got a Swiss trough that comes down here, and the compactor actually has a screw conveyor at the bottom of there too.
So it's not a screw, well, it's a screw conveyor, but not
Right.
as extensive as the other.
Right. So this is our SCADA system, and right now it's looking at the inflow pump station. I can see we've got 2 pumps on right now, and the flow coming to the plant is about 40 mgd.
What population is this?
Well, Tualatin, Sherwood, Tigard, Beaverton, some of Hillsborough. Most of Beaverton. Most of Beaverton. Some parts of Portland, but not much. But some parts of Portland.
Is this the biggest
Actually,
facility in Oregon?
No.
Second?
Yeah, probably. Rock Creek, well, no, I'll take that back. Portland's probably handles more flow. They have a combined sewer. Rock Creek is a little bit bigger than Durham is. And so that probably, well, that might put us at 3rd, but I don't know what Eugene or Corvallis or Ben, I'm not sure what they are. Yeah, but this is one of the largest plants in Oregon. There probably isn't, between this plant and Rock Creek, there are, I mean, we're in the top 1 or 2% of water quality that discharges. There's probably not many plants have a more stringent discharge requirement than ours does. So, okay.
Another go. See where we're going next.
What was the draft?
Oh, I got 3,200 for drag and gill wrap. Today it's 40 design plan.
I think all of them in. One benefit of not curling your hair.
Directly up to the headworks building, and we'll do away with the influence structure. It's a source of odors. It traps a lot of grease. In order to be a good neighbor, we covered all of that. Primary clarifiers discharge into that box right there. There's a pipeline that runs from that box over to the primary effluent pump station. The primary effluent pump station raises the water up and then meters it into each aeration basin. If we have more flow coming into the plant than the aeration basins can take, the flow will start backing up, and the level in that box will start getting higher and higher. And once it gets to a certain point, it overflows a weir and goes to a couple surge basins where we store the water and wait for the flows to drop down in the evening, and then we pump the water back up here and then send the water to the aeration basins.
You have no bypass from primary effluent direct chlorination?
No, well, when it goes to surge, we chlorinate it as it's going to the surge basin. So the surge basins will hold primary treated dechlorinated water. The surge basins have been in service for 12 years, and once that I can think of, they actually got so full that they spilled out the diversion structure and went to the river. And when that happens, we dechlorinate it before it gets to the river, but we've hardly ever had to do that. So there's a pipeline that runs, there's two pipelines that run down this road and then makes this turn here. This is aeration basin 1, and then this is aeration basin 2. Over on the other side is aeration basin 3 and 4. We'll go down this trains 1 and 2. Wow.
On your video, stop here.
And that runs right along the channel here. The aeration basin is broken into 7 cells. Half the aeration basin is 1 through 6, and then the other half of the aeration basin is cell 7. Cell 7 is a serpentine mixture. We've got dividing walls in there, so we've separated cells 7 into 7 A, B, C, D, and E. Cell 1 is primarily anaerobic. That's where the bacteria consume any VFAs and release the phosphorus. So that's what cells 1 and 2 are for. Cell 3 is anoxic, and we'll talk about that in a second. Actually, cells 3 and 4 are both anoxic. 5 and 6 are both aerobic, and that's where we start providing lots of dissolved oxygen for the bacteria, and then they start grabbing up all that phosphorus that they released earlier, and then some. In this aerobic state is where they actually begin their nitrification process. It goes through all of cell 7, and when it gets to almost the last sixth or so of cell 7, we have a mixed liquor recycle pump that brings the mixed liquor back to cell 3, and that provides an anoxic environment, and there we denitrify. We have DO probes throughout the aeration basin. Each DO probe is associated with an air valve, so we try to maintain set oxygen levels throughout the aeration basin, and at some points we'll like in cells 4 and 5, we might actually bring it up to 3 parts of dissolved oxygen or something like that. And then when it gets back to the tail end, there isn't much load there, so we might drop the oxygen level down to a part, for example. And those are just numbers I'm sort of pulling out of the air. But, usually the higher DO levels up to the front, the lower ones at the back. When the flow gets down to the secondary clarifiers, the return activated sludge is pumped back up into cell 1, where it gets a chance to meet the incoming flow and start the process all over again. That is a diffuser that is broken off. And yeah, we don't normally aerate these cells. We have mixers in place to keep the flow in suspension. During the winter time, sometimes we'll oxygenate the entire aeration basin, but usually we keep these inoxic. So we're not. They lassoed it. It looks like they tied it up. When we get the time, we'll fish it out, and if we take this basin offline for something, we'll go down and get that repaired. But it's not a high priority item right now. We've got a pilot project going on right now where we're putting in a lot more instrumentation to keep track of our biological nutrient removal process in here. We're going to be measuring orthophosphates in different parts and TSSs. We're going to put an inline TSS probe to monitor the mixed liquor and also the return activated sludge, what the TSS is in those. We sort of did some creative engineering. This is the chlorine contact basin for side 2. So the flow goes into the primary tertiary clarifier where alum is introduced and allowed to settle at the bottom. And then from there it goes to the secondary tertiary clarifier. Yeah, that's a mouthful. And then after it goes through the tertiary clarifiers, it flows into the CCB where we add sodium hypochlorite. The flow from side 2 comes up this way and then it comes down on this side. When the plant was originally built, we only had one chlorine contact chamber, and we'll go down and just take a look at that, and then we'll talk about the filters.
What kind of chlorine are you using?
Sodium hypochlorite.
What percent?
Oh,
15? 12? 12 and a half maybe.
yeah, 12 and a half.
What is tertiary? Post, so this is really the only plant that follows the basic of normally we have a secondary clarifier. Here, they're tertiary, another treatment step.
What's that called?
13-inch media filter.
What's it called? Filter in inlet media?
Filter inlet
Flume.
And what happens here?
basically this flume feeds all the individual filters, intermediate filters. Good question. That's very fast. We had an operator here a couple of years ago was walking around and he was at the chlorine contact basin and we saw this little black thing sticking out of the water and we walked down there. It was a dog and he reached down, picked it up, set it down there and he was missing. But then a few minutes later he started moving around again. I mean, he's just about done for it. That's where the tennis ball is. That's better than the tennis ball. So fall from there is garnet and sand, and that's primarily it. It's a mixture of garnet and sand. So flow goes through the media, debris gets trapped on the surface, and then the flow goes through some channels, and then it heads for our dechlorination structure. When the debris on the filters accumulates, head loss starts increasing. Enough head loss comes up, we initiate a backwash, and we reverse the flow through the filters, and we open that waste valve there, and all the wash water ends up to the backwash basin, and that backwash basin returns the flow to the interceptor and back to the plant for treatment. I think I'll bypass the dechlorination structure because there's not much you saw there. We're going to walk down through the tunnels really quick and then head on down to the Ostara process. Okay.
You didn't say?
For our readers. We supply the Walton Country Club, a couple country clubs in King City with irrigation water, as well as the Tiger High School and Durham Elementary.
That's cool, bro.
Yeah.
This should be up in the lobby.
I've asked. We at one time had an aquarium set up here where we had some trout in there, and then we found out that keeping wild species of fish isn't legal. So. Oops.
Pretty soon you guys are going to be selling wild salmon. Yeah, here's our fertilizer and our wild salmon.
Yeah, well.
These are farmed from the local plant.
Yeah, so anyway, we turned the trout over to trout. I never realized how aggressive they were. We drop a worm in there, they just go nuts. So, okay, we'll go upstairs and then we'll head on down to the store.
The water's cold. Take a note, the water's cold.
Jeremy.
Are you, Anthony, here you go.
What's up with the feeder fish, man?
Is that a turtle down there?
Oh yeah, there's some koi. There's a black one in there.
Is that a turtle right down there?
It is. Plastic. No, it's real.
That's not
Tossing this in here.
They do. Let them breathe, all right? Let the boys breathe.
I would try to
Sounds like.
Oh, yeah.
Summer.
Anything wants to ball up? Very looking right. Go for it. Maybe a little run. Oh, hello.
It's an online application.
Want to play me one?
So have the students all apply. I know there's some. Too. Now, spring, fall, summer, pretty much any time. Fall and spring. So I said, nope, you can go get an internship whenever works best.
I think a lot of projects going on here. Where you gonna work at?
Summer, I start working for an organization called
So this is our electrical substation on our left. We have two power sources that come in. If we lose power from one source, it'll automatically switch over to the other one. It'll stay like that. And then when the source that went out gets power restored, I believe it automatically switches back. I think it's online now. It's still a little thin.
You use mostly 460. Do you use any bigger one?
Yes.
Kind of like it.
Because it got locked out once it went offline.
So when this building was the original raw sewage pump station. When we brought the new pump station online, this was sort of abandoned until we started thinking about putting this Ostara facility in, and we were trying to figure out where we were going to put it. And somebody suggested this building, and it worked out pretty well. This was the first Ostara facility, full-time facility built in the nation. Shortly after this one was built, they built another one over at Rock Creek. Over at Rock Creek, they started with a brand new building, and so they also learned some of their lessons from this one. So if you wanted to see a real nice building, you go over to Rock Creek. If you want to see the first one, you come over here.
Is there like certified and all that.
Yeah, it's a brand name. The material is actually struvite, and we're able to produce it in a certain method. Yeah, this is struvite. This is waste particles, but most of the time they're gonna look a lot like that. That's pretty close to what the final product looks like.
Say again?
Centric is pumped into this, and then it's recycled. And as it's recycled, these little frills start building up a lot like an oyster. You know, they call them pearls, and they're a lot like oyster making a pearl. They just layer and layer and layer. And then the heavier particles will start settling down towards the bottom of the cone. And then the lighter ones still are at the top. So when it comes time to harvest the reactor, instead of recycling, we'll actually pump them over here to the dryer, and then send it discharges through here, and then they're sized accordingly, and they go to a couple hoppers downstairs.
How much will this put out a day?
We make about a ton a day.
A ton a day?
Probably not.
Okay, anaerobic?
Anaerobic digestion.
And how many?
There's 3 of them right now. We're going to end up having 2.
Are they serious parallel?
Parallel.
What are you thinking?
Because these over here are smaller than those over there.
First one to touch it gets it.
No, I think so. You can go first. Tell me how it is. My secondaries. To be honest with you, not a lot, but primarily we add chemicals to help settle out the solids in the tertiary primarily. Oh, you're going to wait to see how far they go. So that building right there, at least this section right here, that's our final product of, those are the super sacks full of crystal green. That's the struvite that we ship out to have made into fertilizer. That pretty much wraps everything up. Right here are some gravity thickeners. Right now the primary sludge goes into this first thickener. It's pumped off the bottom and pumped into the second thickener. And the overflow from this thickener is reintroduced into that settled sludge again. What happens is as it settles, it begins to ferment, and the VFAs start getting up inside the sludge. And so when we pump it over into the second thickener, we mix it all back up and flush those VFAs out. So when it settles in the second thickener, the overflow from this thickener has got a high concentration of VFAs in it. And those VFAs are sent up to the aeration basin to help phosphorus removal. Primarily, it helps on our shoulder months. Once the temperature gets higher enough, we usually get a good production of VFAs in the collection system. This isn't as important, and that's not important. As important, we start sending some of those VFAs down to, down to the struvite recovery facility, because that helps in the production of phosphorus as well. So, is there anything you guys, we're just about out of time, but if there's something you guys want to take a look at, we can do that. Otherwise, we'll call it good.
Any other questions? All right. I got one last question that's kind of silly, but what is VFA stand for?
Volatile fatty acid.
There was a bottle acid?
Volatile fatty
I have a
acid.
quick question about the, is that that's methane you're burning off?
That's methane right now we're burning off.
You guys don't keep any of that?
We have an engine generator that you hear running back over there. We run the engine generator off the methane. With the brown grease facility we're going to have 2 larger engine generators over there. And what we're going to do is we're going to run those full speed at 100%, and we're going to supplement it with natural gas, because we probably don't have enough methane to run both of them at the same time. But as the population grows, we'll be decreasing that amount of natural gas, and so pretty soon it's going to be to the point where we won't need to flare anything off. We're going to capture all the natural gas. We grab the heat off the engine generators to heat the water, and then we use that hot water to keep the digesters heated, and then we are also going to use that hot water. Well, even now we're using that hot water to heat the influent pump station. We're also going to use it to heat some of our tunnels and this building as well. And we looked about heating the Tigard High School swimming pool, but I guess they figured that wasn't cost competitive. I'm not sure. We're going to be making more hot water than we can actually use. So we're trying to figure out a way to squeeze every last drop of energy out of the influent flow that comes into the plant.
How much of your energy cost do you think we will be able to, what's the percentage that those generators will be able to supply as far as your energy that you use in this plant?
I could find out, but I don't have that information. I believe right now our electrical costs for this plant is about $2 million a year, and I think the engine generators are going to make almost a megawatt of electricity. So find out how much. I think we're paying about a nickel a kilowatt hour. I think something like that for electricity. So you could probably calculate the math and give you a good idea, but I don't know what it is.
Any other questions for Joel? All right. Well,
hey, thanks a lot, you guys. We'll on out this
Joel was the center of the classroom, so there was no no left or right. He
Sat in the aisle.
Stage center.
Sat in the aisle.